Good evening, everyone. It's Brewing Controversy. Uh, so this Wednesday, we're doing something a little bit different. Me and Lucas's work schedules have just gotten completely insane. And we're trying to get back into some sort of rhythm after trying to figure out summer schedules. So tonight, Lucas is at the Progressive Caucus in Grand Rapids, and I would have liked to have started the show at my normal time, except I couldn't. So we're gonna do this a little bit differently today. We're just gonna do a brief show, one topic, one beer, which, as you can see, I'm already pouring this out because it started to foam up really quick. So for those of you who've never seen the show, we normally do this, both me and Lucas, together. But right now, it's gotten a little hectic, and we're still working on that. So in the meantime, this is our new half-pint format, where it's just one of us, and we you won't get to be subjected to my horrible, awful producing. So no hot takes, none of that. Just one topic. And as we promised in last week's show, we are going to be doing our some mention of Pride every single show because, well, it's Pride Month. And the reason I felt the need to go ahead and do this little half pint was because things have gotten a little crazy out there the past couple of weeks, and they keep on getting crazy on this topic. And I normally do videos. Lucas normally does most of the posts, and we kind of split things up that way. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to do a video on some of these things that have been emerging. So for those of you who don't know, see, just terrible producing. Lucas is going to just absolutely kill me later. For those of you who don't know, there's been a lot of stuff happening during Pride Month with regards to not just LGBTQ rights, but minority rights in general, rights of women. And it's important to have all this understood in a wider context, right? It's not just the rights of one group and that's it. There aren't these silos, right? Where women get rights and racial minorities get rights and ethnic minority gets rights and religious minorities get rights and sexual minorities get rights. They're all interconnected because there's an interesting story. There's a mosque actually not too far from Tailgate Brewery here in Nashville, and they were rather notorious for being somewhat religiously conservative. Surprise, organized religion being religiously conservative. But one of the things that got noted was originally these people, these Muslims, they would look around and be like, why should we side with, the same, someone who for the month of June goes out in a parade in their finest assless chaps to, thrust lewdly at the audience. Why would we have the same goals as this person? And the way the story went was, as they looked around, they realized, okay, wait a second. The same people who are trying to take away that guy's rights are the same people who are trying to take away my rights. Huh. That's an odd connection for us, being conservative Muslims. We just want to practice our religion in peace, and I guess they just want to not be discriminated against either. And it's an interesting evolution that happened in that moment with these now conservative Tennessee Muslim groups supporting LGBTQ civil rights organizations, or at least standing next to them, because they recognize that there's a common enemy here. There are people who don't think that we should be equal in society. It's really simple. But a lot of stuff has happened this week on that front. And I wanted to talk about it briefly. The first thing I kind of posted about the other day was, the connection between, the same people who want to deprive gays and lesbians and transgendered people of their rights also seem to have a high degree of hatred of women. Last week, the Southern Baptist Convention held their yearly meeting, or semi-yearly meeting, however it works. Pardon me. The group that was sort of being targeted by the meeting was this organization out in California called Saddleback Church. Now, the issue was that Saddleback Church had ordained female pastors. Now, the Southern Baptist Convention doesn't allow that idea, at least on the surface. There was argument that there's vagary to be allowed on that point. But the Southern Baptist Church's highest committee decided that we don't agree, and Saddleback Church appealed. When they said no, there's vagary here. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about the fact that women should be equal within the church. And this organization, which has repeatedly said, gays and lesbians are wrong, that in the past has been very vocal in its objection to interracial marriage, civil rights of any kind. Not only did they take the step to definitively reject that Saddleback Church was a member of the Southern Baptist Convention, they went one step further. And the reason this was important is because in many places in the Southern Baptist Church, many churches had said, well, she's not a full pastor, she's a youth minister. Or she's not a full pastor, she's a teaching pastor. Or all these other ways to get around this technical prohibition against women. Oh, no. No. They decided that all of that is wrong and it has to be done away with. And that's what they did. They completely removed all vagary in favor of women have no place in the Southern Baptist Convention at all. They are to be subservient to their husbands as the church, quote, this is a quote, they are to be subservient to their husbands as the church is subservient to God. This is 2023, ladies and gentlemen. This is insane. You can't do this. I mean, you can, obviously, because they did it. But no rational, reasonable person that looks around and says, you know what? Women are inferior. But we see that going on all over the place. Now that the right have lampooned as hard as they can trans individuals, this couple of days after the anniversary of the Supreme Court finding in Dobbs that women do not have bodily autonomy in the same way that men do. Women can be told that they are nothing but walking, talking incubators. Women can be forced to die from preventable medical conditions for want of medical care because it's not their body. They're just there to loan it out to men's offspring. And there's this connection. There really is. The idea that trans people don't have bodily autonomy, that trans children who, and we keep on hearing these stories about, oh well, there are these doctors out there that are just castrating little boys. No, that's not happening anywhere. This is not 18th century China. We don't have a court of eunuchs. I don't know. Maybe Washington would be run better if we brought back, the old Chinese eunuch system. But no, that's not what's happening at all. You have people who, and sometimes children, who are going and talking to psychiatrists. They are going and talking to doctors, not just one doctor, not just two doctors, not just three doctors, multiple batteries of doctors to assert, this individual has gender dysmorphia, and we have the ability and power to do something about it. We can begin the process actually at a more convenient time, as far as the patient is concerned, to transition this individual to their appropriate gender. Now, again, you can't change sex. They still are going to have, XX or XY chromosomes, but you can change the gender, and you can physically modify the patient to allow them to experience their life as the gender which they identify with. So in the same way that women have been stripped of their bodily autonomy, right now you have state legislatures stripping all these other people of their bodily autonomy. And it isn't just simply a matter of, we don't like this, we want you to stop. No. They want the fear of God put in these people. Already in multiple states, you've had doctors and friends of family and women arrested on the charge of murder for seeking abortions. And already you have parents who have been threatened with loss of custody. You have individuals who have been threatened by the state, especially in places like Missouri and Florida, for expressing their gender identity. In Tennessee, the drag queen law has been struck down. There's this connection, right? People have medical bodily autonomy. In other words, one of the things that I always like to point out about abortion and such things is, there's a reason why you have to check the little box in your driver's license that says, I want to be an organ donor. Why is that? Well, even if you're dead, the state cannot take your organs. But it goes further than that, doesn't it? There's tons of people who need liver transplants, kidney transplants, all sorts, corneal transplants. Does the government tell people that they have to give up organs to give those other people life? Or even a better quality of life, but life, right? Like there are many people who die for want of a kidney transplant. Why doesn't the government just make everyone give up a kidney so we can, oh, hey, you're a genetic match to this person. You need to give up your kidneys so that person lives. No, we don't do that. We don't interfere with individuals' medical decisions, even ones that are stupid, right? There was a sect called Christian Scientists who don't believe in all sorts of modern medicine. They believe that God will cure them, God will heal them. And that if you find the correct formula of prayer, yeah, it sounds like spell casting because if you find the correct formula of prayer, you can heal that person. That's stupid. And for the most part, we don't interfere with that person's stupidity. But somehow, if the person is suffering from gender dysmorphia and wants to transition to their gender, we're going to interfere. And if a woman gets pregnant, we're going to interfere. We're going to tell her, you have to carry that baby no matter what. Before it's even a baby, right? Before it's even viable. Nope, you have to do it. The rights of one are the rights of all. And understand that these attacks are linked. They're all part of this idea of somehow we as white men have lost something. And the thing is, we didn't lose anything. We're expanding. We didn't lose some sort of God-given privilege to dominate others. We're supposed to be talking about rights, right? The right of people to do things. Except it's what these people are describing aren't rights; they're privileges, right? It's and there is a difference between a right and a privilege. And the easiest way I found to describe the difference is government can curtail your rights, and they can also curtail privileges. But when we curtail a right, we feel that something more essential has been deprived of us. The right to free speech. Someone, especially the government, but particularly the government for the purpose of law, says you can't say that, you feel violated. No, I want to say that. I want to speak my mind. And the government, look at Second Amendment nuts. They look at gun ownership as a right. Right? That's what they say, at least. Privilege doesn't require as much introspection. It doesn't trigger this sort of visceral outrage on behalf of society to ameliorate its deprivation. And that's how you can tell what the conservatives think are rights and privileges. Because if it's a right, by definition, in America, it should belong to everyone. And if it's a privilege, well, privileges can be curtailed at will. And so when they're talking about their right to bear arms, what they're actually talking about is their privilege. Because, of course, they don't want black people or women or trans people or any of these other people to have guns. They want to make sure that everyone understands that I, the white lunatic on the block, have a gun and will use it to hurt you. And you can't do anything about it. I am made powerful by my gun. Wow. Freedom of speech. Today, a group of Republican Congress people had hearings about the fact that a lot of these tech companies refused to post their rabid, completely unhinged misinformation on things ranging from race to COVID. Right? And somehow that was government, that was interference somehow. And now they're trying to find a way to say that the Biden administration, looking point blank at some of these social media companies saying, we're watching you, that was somehow a government order, that had a chilling effect, as we say in law, on the exercise of free speech. But Musk, on the other hand, can turn around and openly promote whatever nutty idea enters that fucker's head. And that's fine. That's him. It's him. That's him doing whatever he wants because he owns a media company. No one should be able to tell him what to do. Well, no one told Facebook or Reddit or any of these other groups what to do. They said, "Hey, we're watching you," and they stopped some of it. So the way conservatives look at rights, they look at almost all of them as privileges because they are privileges that belong to white conservative males. Bodily autonomy is a privilege that belongs to white conservative males. Right to have health care, to be treated fairly by your doctor, right? To not have to suffer unnecessarily because of your sex or gender. That's a privilege that should, in their minds, belong only to white men. And they've made it very clear. It's not a right. Your doctor giving you treatment isn't a right. It's a privilege. You have no right to expect good treatment from a doctor if you're not a white male. This is where they're coming at this. And so we need to understand that all of these things are linked. They're all interconnected one after the other. And before I move on to my next point, I'd like to very quickly show off my beer. This is one of the ones I got from Scott's Edition. This is Vasen the Shaman. And it is a barrel-aged farmhouse ale, which is not something you'd see very often. Notes of stone fruit, apple, and tart. And it does actually have a pretty fruity flavor. I'm kind of surprised by it. And it does finish with a very apple tart. Yeah. But then it kind of like it begins to finish with that. And then it moves into this very nice kind of malty, yeasty farmhouse. So it likes to snap you awake with a little bit of that tart stone fruit, move on to more of a tart apple, and then finish with all the way in the back with this kind of malty yeastiness that's kind of fun. I mean, it's a really enjoyable mix. Yeah, I'm really glad I picked that up. And I can't tell if at the end is that just more tart or, Final point I want to make is this. Why should we care? I mean, there's simply not that many trans people, right? Women are doing better today than they were the day before in most cases. Why do we care about these rights for others? Well, we care about them because it doesn't always stay that way, right? We're seeing a rollback in the rights of people. Right now, affirmative action is likely about to be put on the chopping block simply because some kid who happens to be Asian felt really bad that he didn't get into any of his top picked schools. And he decided that it was because he was Asian. Even when the schools looked at him and said, it's not because you're Asian, it's because you're a dick. Which is why you brought this lawsuit, because you're a dick. We didn't want you at our school because you are a giant dick. See, that's fair enough. Nothing to do with race. It had everything to do with you're a dick. And it was perfectly within the school's right to say, yeah, we'd rather not have, giant smelly dicks at our school. And nothing to do with you being being Asian. We have plenty of Asians here who go to school here. Do we consider race as an element when selecting people? Yes, because we want a diverse campus. We want people of many races to show up. You being Asian didn't mean that like we hit our magic Asian quota and stopped and said, no more Asians. Not today. That's not what happened. But it doesn't matter because this person felt that again they were supposed they had the privilege, right? I'm supposed to be given this over other people. So everywhere this is under attack, the rights of minorities, not just uh, women's bodily autonomy, not just LGBTQ people's bodily autonomy, uh, racial justice is under attack. And we need to pay attention to this because it is rolling back. Just because and the Supreme Court has proven this, just because we had a case that gave marriage equality to LGBTQ people doesn't mean that they won't take it away. Obviously, we thought Roe v. Wade was settled law. And all these little, anti-abortion acts that, conservative state legislatures would pump out to appease their base were just simply performative. Well, they're not performative now, are they? Women genuinely lost the ability to have an abortion. In fact, in some states are trying to make it illegal for them to even go to another state to have an abortion, which doesn't work at all. Well, but again, if we don't do something about it, they're going to sit there and they're going to keep on hammering at it until it's the truth. And then it's going to be the next thing and 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 the next thing. You don't just get to sit back and look at the world and say, oh, that's settled law. Women should be allowed to vote. You have conservatives out there right now today talking about women being stripped of the right to vote. You have conservatives out there right now today saying, kill the gay people. It can get worse. And when they attack one minority, it's always every other minority after it. It's because it's got to be this for them. It's this cycle of hate. Ever since conservatives lost the script in the 90s, because they got tired of losing for having a bad agenda, for having a bad economic agenda, they decided that they had to create the culture wars. That they could win with that. They could win by going and telling these traditionally Democratic voters out in rural America, hey, you know what you really don't like? Gay people. You know who we don't like? Gay people. You know what? How about I make a deal with you that if I go out and hurt gay people, you'll vote for me. You know what you don't like? You don't like that ugly, uppity wife of yours. How about we make you permanent master of the household? You know what you don't like? You don't like that person down the street who's a little funny and maybe you're not sure if they're a man or a woman, and you don't like how they dress, and that confuses you. You know what? You don't like them. I don't like them either. We're gonna go do something about them. Vote for me. Do it. Vote for me. And I will go fight them. But here's the thing. Of course, they didn't fight them, right? It's performative. It's a game. They stand up, they do a little dance, and nothing changed, right? It was entirely performative. But they just kept on doing it and doing it again and again and again and again and again until all of a sudden, the majority of states in America, the state legislatures, are Republican controlled. And they're making these laws. And now they have a Supreme Court that will back them up and help them do horrible things to these people. And that won't be enough because it has to escalate. These people, it's not a rational thought of hating these people. This isn't a rational reaction. This is not a reaction born of any sort of logical thought of, you know what? Black people are a threat. we need to do something about that because races aren't a threat. You know what? Gay people, gay gay people are up to something. Of course, what the big gay agenda? Yeah, that's a thing. They're all, you know what? I, who am not a gay man, have personally been to several of their local council meetings, and it's just a great time. And then we all vote for the wider, bigger gay agenda. No, no one does that. That's not happening. No one here, none of these people are a threat to anyone else other than their privilege. Their idea that no matter what, I want to give an example. In U.S. history, a lot of people asked why poor white sharecroppers would fight for the Confederacy. And there was one particular area in North Carolina called the Pine Barrens. Now, on the Tennessee side, there was a rebellion against the Confederacy and an attempt to establish another West Virginia-like state called Nickajack. On the North Carolina side of the Appalachians, there was no rebellion. People asked, well, the Tennesseans on that side of the Appalachians rose in rebellion against the Confederacy. Why did the North Carolinians on that side of the line not do so? And the answer kept on becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. It's because at least I'm not black. The Confederacy gave these extremely poor whites the opportunity to stand up and say, you know what? At least I'm better than one other person, and that's a black person. I may be poor. I may shit in my hand and use it as fucking pomade. It doesn't matter. Because I can do that and I'll be looked down on. But I can always look down on a black man. That was why. The right they were fighting for was the right to enslave and oppress another people for their own emotional benefit. Because for many of these people, there was no financial benefit in continuing slavery. In fact, it was bad for them. It was not good because it allowed these giant plantations to just keep on getting richer and richer and richer and richer while they kept on having to sell whatever they could from their little plot of land. I mean, it got so bad. And this is one of my classic things that, I love explaining to people about Southern history. There's a reason why our food is so fatty and awful. And why, strangely, also not that nutritious. The answer is because most of that food was generated for the pure purpose of feeding slaves. Because they weren't growing food, they were growing cash crops for the plantation owners to get wealthier and wealthier. This is what this is about, though. This is about this idea that I may be a white male in America, but somehow I'm better than someone else. Intrinsically. Not by my actions, not by my words, not by my thoughts, but by my very existence, I am somehow better than someone else. And that is what this is about. They want to be better than women. They want to be better than gays and lesbians. They want to be better than racial minorities. They want to be better than immigrants. They want to be better than somebody. And they need the law to reflect that. They need the law to make all rights privileges, privileges that are extended to whites and not to other people, and specifically white men. So the fight for minority rights is a fight against that worldview. It is a fight against the idea that your autonomy, that your rights can be stripped. That rights are not privileges, they are rights. I may not like the Second Amendment. I think the Second Amendment needs wild alteration, or at least a better understanding if originalists actually want to sit down and have a conversation about what the founders meant when they wrote what they did in the Second Amendment. At least a better conversation other than, it's my right. Because I have a hard time understanding how the U.S. Constitution looks at a person walking and talking in front of them who is in medical jeopardy and says you can't get medical care, not because you can't afford it, but because you may be pregnant, and even if the pregnancy isn't viable, you know what? Your life has to be put in danger for our satisfaction. Where in the hell would the Constitution ever empower a government to look at a citizen and say, you have to suffer for our entertainment? Because that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's entertainment. It's the enjoyment of privilege. You, as a black man, are not entitled to have equal opportunity to seek employment or education. You, as a lesbian, gay, transgender, non-binary, etc. person, are not allowed to enjoy the same rights of marriage, protection of not being fired in your job, owning property. You're not entitled to those. Minority rights are everyone's rights. All right, folks. This has been your half pint. So, as is our custom, good night